I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Live exclusively for WCPT in Chicago, standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. How are you? Happy Saturday. Hope everybody's doing well. This fine day. We are 2 weeks and change away from the election, and a quickening is going on. We are seeing, the president and the vice president are both out. The former vice president and the president are both out on the campaign trail, kind of hitting it hard in all the battleground states. The Democrats are obviously concerned that all the talk of a 11 to 17 point national lead is going to lower turnout in battleground states, and so they're pushing back against that messaging. The president, on the other hand, who is behind in a lot of these polls, is oddly pushing a "it's going to be okay" message, along with his "get out the vote," which is a contradiction that I think is surprising to everybody on his staff, but has a lot to do, I think, with his ego more than anything. And so it kind of eats into the messaging that they're putting forward, that they need to drive people to vote. They need to feel like this is an intense fight. They need to be willing in a lot of places to stand in line for a long time to get their vote in, or do all the necessary things like fill out an application for a mail-in ballot if they haven't already. And a lot of early voting will launch this Monday. We're getting into the point where we get even into the harder states where they only have maybe a week of early voting. So over the next 2 weeks, the messaging around the election becomes incredibly crucial. And there will, tensions tighten. People are having frank discussions about polling in certain states. Right now, the numbers look very good for Joe Biden and, nationwide. But like I said, the campaign is really focused on not taking Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and other states for granted, while they're able to, in advertising, chip into other states that Donald Trump has quite frankly pulled out of, including Colorado, where the Republicans have all but written off the seat to Hickenlooper. At this point, he's going to take it, they think. And therefore, by pulling that ad campaign out of the Republican that's running, that's also sort of soft advertising that the president would also benefit from, and the coordination between those two campaigns, if there was any structural mixing between the two. And good morning to the chat room and everybody who's joining us. Of course, we're live on WCPT Radio, but we're also streaming at twitch.tv/HalSparks and Halsparks.live, and my Facebook page, and on Twitter as well, if it's up and running. Twitter crashed this week and went through an interesting phase at the same time. It's hard to believe they aren't linked. In a lot of ways, the blackout of Twitter this week largely was in responses. People, curiously enough, were able to still post, but not see what the content, the connectivity of the posts that they were seeing, whatever they wrote back, or whatever the subsequent conversations from any posts they would put up, they weren't able to engage with those on a lot of accounts. There's a lot of reason to believe that was actually Twitter doing some brooming as opposed to a hack, but it also could have been. There's really no word. It's just Twitter's down, Twitter's back up, on we go. Now, a lot of it seemed to center around the story from the New York Post, and we're going to cover that a little bit today. Not because there's anything legitimate to it. I'm not going to pretend that what I'm going to be talking about in terms of this story is news in any way. Because the contents of the New York Post story are hilarious. That's why I want to talk about them. They are ridiculous. It is one thing to have a proxy like WikiLeaks or DC Leaks receive emails from a hacked server for campaign officials of the Hillary Clinton campaign and pose as not as a proxy for Russian intelligence, but as truth tellers. That it's important for the American people to know the exchanges that went on between Hillary Clinton and John Podesta about the person they're campaigning against, those kind of things, which is an absurdity. But there's one thing to believing that information was valuable, germane to the election in any way, some sort of gotcha. I mean, Pizzagate was largely built on the fact that there was no there. And of course, we found out earlier this year through Trump's own Justice Department that the DOJ went through the email trials and tribulations of Hillary Clinton and found nothing and scuttled it in the dead of night, much like the recent Barr story where he was supposed to have found something out about the unmasking. This was going to be part of the October surprise. They were rushing to get this out, like the Durham report. And what happened was Bill Barr sort of disappeared after maybe or maybe not testing positive for COVID-19, and then the report was just scuttled last Friday night, much to the disappointment of the president and his allies. So following right after that, in this story very well, in a normal election cycle, is one of the kind of stories you would hear, I guess, a week to maybe 5 days before an election as an October surprise. The thing that makes everybody hesitate really hard before going to vote. That it would so shock them, an October surprise. That's the essence of it. Or a scandal that starts at the top of the month that is so real and has so much depth to it that the more you look into it, the worse it seems to look, and therefore it grinds the news cycle down and has people asking the candidate about this nonstop. And those are your two basic formats for an October surprise. And we're now in the period in American history and sort of the PRing of campaigning that those kinds of strategies are set in stone for the most part. The post story, because it lacks depth and the more you look into it, is one of those you put closer to the election. The idea is you drop it 5 days before the election or 3 days before the election. It eats up a bunch of news cycles, and there's a percentage drop in voter support that you can expect from a story like that, whether it's true or not, whenever it's dropped, whenever the polling follows, of a percentage point or something. That's what the Access Hollywood tape arguably did to Trump for a bit. The argument is, was it released too quickly? And was that in and of itself a padding of the strategy to protect Trump? Give him more time to push back, against it, or for the news cycle itself in these days to eat it up. So the New York Post story, if you haven't been following along, is that allegedly, we have to go back a second. So if you'll recall, with the whole Lev and Igor story of Ukraine, and Rudy Giuliani was going to Ukraine and interacting with all these business people, and Rudy Giuliani had been in business in Ukraine since before Trump ran for president. By the way, when the place was horrifyingly corrupt, and started to do less and less business in Ukraine, legit business anyways, I suppose, according to him. When Shulkin, the prosecutor that Biden helped push out, was kicked out, and they started really prosecuting corruption, and because Shulkin was a sock puppet for the Russians and was protecting the corrupt interests and guaranteeing that no one who was clean could get in there and actually have and be involved in the Ukrainian energy sector in particular, but also just in any Ukrainian mass business, because the idea is to scuttle the Ukrainian economy and drive the Ukrainian people into demanding they be absorbed back into Russia. That's the strategy. It's been going on for a long time. And there are multiple members of Trump's circle and Trump's campaign who were integral parts of that. The most obvious one being Paul Manafort, who was there on the Maidan massacre day, was allegedly, according to his own daughters, the one who suggested that the then president of Ukraine opened fire on his own people, put agents provocateur in the protest crowds, have snipers on rooftops, and then have the agents provocateur give them an excuse to start shooting. And that was the part that Paul Manafort played in that. That was his suggestion. Paul Manafort, who is, one of 3 former campaign managers of the president who's been arrested, and he's currently in jail, is by all measures a horrible human being. Beyond whether or not you think he would give you good advice in a campaign, whether or not you think Roger Stone is an ignoramus and a rogue troll, you could argue that in his messing around in the electorate that he's been doing his entire life, that it's standard run-of-the-mill, minor sabotage and pushback, campaigning stuff. But what Manafort was doing in Ukraine was on an entirely different level and involved the murdering of citizens to put down a protest. Now we live through Donald Trump's attitude towards protests. It is no surprise that he was drawn to someone like Paul Manafort early on in his political career and thought, this is the guy for me. The whole distancing of him, I barely know him, and he probably got his coffee idea that he keeps shoving everybody into the drawer of. With Manafort, it's quite obvious that in Trump's tweets about the Floyd protests in the street and the what was going on in Portland, what was going on in the CHOP in Seattle, and those is that he favors this idea that's similar to Paul Manafort's, which is gin up a reason to give yourself to open fire as best you can. And with the Boogaloo Boys and other groups like that wanting to do it for him in a non-official capacity, it's a strategy that is functioning. There's no real reason to believe anything that Trump says about Manafort just being somebody he barely knew and suggested. This is exactly the guy that Trump would want to work under him if he behaves the way he's behaving right now. This is what drew him to Manafort. We got to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Giuliani's trip to Ukraine, and then we're going to get into where the New York Post story came from, which that division in and of itself, the way that the fork in the road that story goes on is one of the most hysterical parts of the whole thing. We'll be back. So, hi, chat room. How are you? Good to see you. Good morning, everybody. I think we're live on Facebook. We're good? Yep. Is everybody going? It says go live. Why aren't you? What's happening?
Hey, Hal, we have one caller. It's Amos from Aurora.
Okay. Give me it'll probably be into the next break. We'll talk about that. So, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. For some reason, edit settings. Oh, I see. Understand. Yeah. Hi, Susie. What's happening? How can you please say something against voting third party? Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's an abdication of your responsibility and a denial of current reality. It's gross.
20 seconds.
Thank you. And I will do it on the radio. Absolutely. Hi. Hey, David. Cheers. Welcome back to the show. I think we're back. Yeah, we're back. Sure, why not? Hi. So there's obviously a lot to unpack in this, but we've gone over a couple of the stories that came out about Rudy Giuliani, and you know, not the least of which was a recent story in the New York Times that the FBI had warned the White House that Rudy Giuliani was being manipulated by a Russian agent. And in the in the follow-up to that story coming out, in an interview, I think it was with Ari Melber, Michael Cohen said, "Yeah, Rudy is very susceptible to being manipulated by Russian intelligence because he's over there all the time and he's drunk constantly." And when asked, did you actually see him this way? And he goes, "Yes, I've seen him high school drunk a lot of times." I'm just gonna, as a frequent traveler, I mean, I don't drink anyways, but the idea of going to Russia and getting yourself blackout drunk, or not, or at least so tipsy someone else has to give you a ride home, especially when you have influence in the in the American electorate as America's mayor or something, is horribly bad judgment in and of itself. How are you not aware of who they are and what they will do if they, you pass out somewhere and they just get a couple of pictures of you? That's pretty much it. How do you put yourself in that position? And by the way, what was Rudy Giuliani doing largely besides, whatever work he said he couldn't talk about because they were clients? He was doing security work, which is, the sketchiest international world of, unless you're selling alarm units, nation to nation, if you're ADT and you have, we want to expand into the European market, so we're creating, French brochures for our home security systems. Unless you're in that kind of security, most of the time when you're talking about, we're in the security business, it's some sketchy arms dealing, barely legal stuff. It's Blackwater light is what Rudy Giuliani was doing. Now, the story coming out that he was being targeted by Russian intelligence is no surprise to anybody. Quite frankly, I guess except the White House, that the story got out. But this is from the Washington Post. White House was warned Giuliani was target of Russian intelligence operation to feed misinformation to Trump. U.S. intelligence agencies warned the White House last year that President Trump's personal lawyer, Rudolph Giuliani, was the target of an influence operation by Russian intelligence, according to 4 former officials familiar with the matter. The warnings were based on multiple sources, including intercepted communications that showed Giuliani was interacting with people tied to Russian intelligence during a December 2019 trip to Ukraine. So this, if he worked in the administration, everyone would be screaming about unmasking. That how do they dare, they're spying on Rudy Giuliani. The reality is they're spying on Russians who are engaged in international money laundering, gun running, and certainly misinformation and disinformation campaigns meant to affect the U.S. election. So they're keeping tabs on these folks. They are enemies of the state. And Rudy Giuliani got to the point where he had called these people and been in the rooms with these people so many times that they started listening to everything else. So he's been going, this said, was interacting with people tied to Russian intelligence during a December trip in 2019 to Ukraine while he was gathering information that he thought would expose corrupt acts by former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Now, they were warned about this a year ago. Timeline is very important. Why was the FBI warning them about this a year ago, and new intelligence sources were talking to the White House about this? Well, because this is when allegedly this whole exchange with finding Hunter Biden's laptop magically, the Anthony Weiner Redux idea, where they're just basically recreating the the Anthony Weiner storyline leading up to the Hillary Clinton email story, which we know now turned out to be a nothing burger twice. Intelligence raised concerns that Giuliani was being used to feed Russian misinformation to the president. To the president, the former official said, speaking on a condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive information and conversations. The warnings to the White House, which have not previously been reported, led National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien to caution Trump in a private conversation that any information Giuliani brought back from Ukraine should be considered contaminated by Russia. Okay, so that's the, this is the thing. So Rudy's been over there a bunch of times. He did a documentary over there. He's meeting with Victor Shokin. He's doing all this stuff in there. And where does the New York Post story come from? Where in Kiev, what back alley of Kiev or cafe in Italy or part of Russia does Giuliani find this key piece of evidence after doing all that traveling back and forth? A Delaware computer repair shop, allegedly. So the story is, New York Post puts out a story that Giuliani has gotten a hold of a copy of a hard drive that was in a laptop allegedly left at a Delaware repair shop. And the person who dropped off 3 laptops and never came back for them. The owner of the shop couldn't see who they were, but when asked about it, and he said he didn't know, then later he came back with a freshly written invoice with Hunter Biden's name, phone number, and email on it. After he'd been interviewed the first time, where he didn't have any. He says that he is legally blind and can't be 100% sure who dropped off the laptop. But in case you're planning on getting any work done at McIsaac's computer repair shop, apparently he has a tendency, according to him, of if it's just there, going through your laptop files and looking at all your pictures and your emails. Just 'cause. And apparently the only reason he did this was because there was a Beau Biden Foundation sticker on the laptop itself. This is how he knew it was Hunter's. So this guy apparently contacted Rudy Giuliani, because that's what you do when you find when an unknown person drops off a laptop at your 3 laptops, but only one has a. I don't know if he copied the hard drives of the other laptops, if there was anything on them, or if that person just seemed to. I don't know. That's where it gets a little foggy. The whole story gets very foggy. It's a lot of fun, this one. The key of thrust of the article, April 17th, in 2015, there was an email that suggests that Hunter Biden arranged for a top executive at a Ukrainian energy firm, to meet with Vice President Biden when he was in charge of U.S. policy toward Ukraine. The email says, "Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spent some time together. It's realty and honor and pleasure." Yeah, I didn't mispronounce any of those words. That's how it's. "Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spent some time together. It's realty and honor and pleasure." And it's supposedly written by Vadim Pozharsky, an advisor on the board of Burisma. No confirmation there, just whatever. Yeah. So beyond this, that the New York Post is claiming that this is a smoking gun email that Hunter Biden is influence peddling using his father. This is the story that they want to push, and knowing full well that probably nearing the election this time last year, that one of the storylines must be that they're getting into between Ivanka's trademarks and the ongoing deals in other countries, the Trump Tower, Bahrain, that's clearly on deck, that one of the stories leading up to the election, in their estimation last year, would be the corruption of the Trump family. So they prepared for a pushback story by saying, well, the Bidens are corrupt and the like. And I'm sure they have them teed up. Yes. So, yeah, and indeed, we are up and running at the YouTube channel. That's Halsparks.live. Can take you there as well until I get out of out of YouTube jail, which will be right after the election. How interesting as far as timing. We got to take a break. When we come back. How do we know that that email is authentic? The shorter answer is we don't. The longer answer is kind of hilarious. We'll be back. Haven't they gone on to post pictures of more emails from the alleged laptop? No, there's two pictures of what they say is Hunter Biden smoking crack and then going to bed. Which Brent Terhune's bit about that is hilarious because he's like, because he does the Trump supporter character that you'll often see that people think is real. Thanks, Iconicalism. The pictures themselves, like at a certain point in the age of deep fakes, honestly, what the pictures they posted, they say he's smoking crack. It looks like he's smoking pot and going to sleep, which I think across the board, the mass of the electorate is going to go. Oh, thank you. Is beyond fine with at this point.
Also, hey, really quick, I'm gonna play music and then that's when you talk. So
okay, cool. Because usually we roll in the a stinger from one of the other hosts or whatever, that kind of thing. That's what sometimes I wait for that, but if you're just rolling music, it's cool.
Cool. Yeah, it's like broken or something. So
I understand.
We got about 30 seconds.
Excellent. Yeah, most people looked at those pictures and were like, no, he was smoking pot and he went to sleep. Which is endearing on, in this day and age to most people. Devil's lettuce. Welcome back to the show. This is the HalSparks radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. WCPT820.com is the website. And of course, you can just, I know you're listening right now. You're out driving around. You're getting that AM vibe. It's fantastic. Program it into your radio if you haven't already. Just do that. Do yourself that favor. Got all your favorite progressive talkers. And CPT is one of the only independent progressive channels left in the country after the onslaught by Bain Capital. We'll get into that at another time. Ahem. Anyways, okay, so back to the emails and the purported pictures that they posted of Hunter Biden allegedly smoking crack and then going to sleep, which I think most people would more align with smoking marijuana and then going to sleep. Seems kind of more on brand drug wise. And if indeed if the result of crack, smoking was that people got tired, I don't know that it would have gotten the reputation it's had all these years. I'm just saying it would have. So back to the post story about this. Do we know if these emails or these pictures are authentic? No. Rudy Giuliani was going back and forth to Ukraine and Russia and meeting with Russians and Ukrainian former Ukrainian politicians who'd been drummed out because of corruption in Italy, putting together this weird little documentary that he was hoping would be another Citizens United. That flopped. The unmasking story cratered a couple of weeks ago. The Hillary's email thing died earlier this year. There's just no there. So it is quite obvious that over the course of this thing that they cooked up this story and dropped off this magic laptop with a bunch of deep fakes and forged emails and crisscrossed stuff they, by the way, when this laptop was allegedly discovered a year ago, was exactly the timing, by the way, if you'll recall, that the Russians had broken into the Burisma hard drives. If you'll recall, there was this, attack on the server at Burisma, and that story had been around for a little bit. The idea that there are normal emails or normal exchanges between Biden and others at Burisma, and then they just took the structure of those, fabricated some emails, because there is no metadata in any of these emails. Let me explain something, folks. If you ever see a printout of an email in a story, you are being lied to. The only way you can verify an email, and even this isn't that hard to manipulate, is if you see all the underlying metadata printed along with it. Here's the email, here's all the underlying metadata and the code of the email itself. Where it came from, what server it went through, what the IP address was, all that stuff. And that's for every single one. Because it's easy to get one that looks weird and then drum up a dozen others, and you're going to assume that the metadata is right on the rest of those. Now, if you don't believe me, hand someone that you don't trust an X, I recommend. Hand an X to your hard drive, and then allow them to release emails that they find on there. And trust that the details within them will actually be what were in the original emails. It's absurd. So, New York Post published PDF printouts of several emails allegedly taken from the laptop, which, by the way, I would even go so far as saying the alleged laptop. This is a copy of a hard drive that was supposedly given for a laptop that may or may not have existed. Nobody's ever seen it. But for the smoking gun email, it shows only a photo made the day before the story was posted. And according to Thomas Rid, the author of Active Measures, a book on disinformation, there is no header information, no metadata. The Washington Post has not been able to independently verify or authenticate these emails, as requests to make the laptop hard drive available for inspection have not been granted. The New York Post said it obtained the material from former New York Mayor Rudolph W. Giuliani, a personal lawyer to the president. Also, here's the thing. This is the smoking gun email. This is like, thanks for maybe me meeting your dad when we go to D.C. I'm looking forward to it. There is no indication that Hunter Biden replied to the email. Moreover, another alleged email published by the New York Post contradicts the notion that Hunter Biden could influence his father, because in it, apparently, he says, what he will do and say is out of our hands. Hunter Biden wrote in an email that the New York Post said was sent April 13th, 2014, meaning that even if you meet him, I can't influence what my dad's going to do, which is the exact opposite of influence peddling. Now, Trump clearly has an issue with, most of us would call it Burisma, but
the company that his son worked for, that's Burisma.
Burisma, as the president has pronounced it, or
the Burmese executives. So this Burisma, they say, pronounce it Burisma.
No, they don't. No, they don't. No one says that. That was from a rally this week where they've been pushing this story rather heavily.
Burisma.
Where after you hear that enough times, it's actually hard to pronounce it correctly, because it's
Burisma.
I don't know what he's trying to even. I don't know what order of letters he's going for in that situation. And Andrew Bates, who was at Andrew Bates, who was a campaign spokesperson for Joe Biden, said a review of Biden's schedules from 2015 found no record of any such meeting. So whoever this guy said, I look forward to meeting your dad, and Hunter didn't respond, blew it off, or ignored it, and then the meeting never happened. So as far as influence peddling goes, kind of crappy. Meanwhile, you do realize the Trump has refused to release the White House visitor logs for the entirety of his presidency. Obama and Biden, you can see everybody that came and went. But Trump, the minute he got in office, hid the visitor logs. Why? And if you're going to say, well, they're getting meetings with people that the kids are arranging and it's all kind of influence peddling, then one of the ways you could make us maybe believe that you are sincere in your concern is to release the White House visitor logs. But Trump is too busy tweeting that all the materials from the Mueller report and the Mueller investigation need to be completely declassified and released, assuming not the ones that would give away, intelligence methods or the location of intelligence agents, therefore putting their lives in danger, but maybe not. Maybe he doesn't care. Anyways, Michael Carpenter, who was Biden's foreign policy advisor in 2015, said, I was with the vice president in all of his meetings on Ukraine. He never met with this guy. In fact, I'd never heard of this guy until the New York Post story broke. New York Post article also cites an email from Pozharskyi to Hunter Biden saying he was, quote, going to share this information with the U.S. Embassy here in Kyiv, as well as the office of Mr. Amos Hochstein in the States. I know for a fact he never contacted me or my office, said Hochstein, who at the time worked closely with Biden as a special envoy and coordinator for international energy affairs. I provided every record to the Senate investigation and no mention of this guy was ever made. No emails, no correspondence. I know almost every player in the energy sector in Ukraine. I never met this guy. Carpenter said the vice president wouldn't have had a meeting with a company executive. He was vice president of the United States. He met with prime ministers. Let's see. This does not exclude the possibility Biden briefly shook hands and chatted with Pozharskyi during a public event. Hunter Biden, for instance, helped arrange for a potential business partner, Jonathan Lee, to shake hands with his father in the lobby of a Beijing hotel when the vice president made an official trip to China. By the way, there are no businessmen in China who are not related to the government, who aren't effectively a minister of something. That's not the same thing that happens in Ukraine. Make sure I'm good on time. Pozharskyi, in the April 17th email, mentions that he spoke to Hunter, quote, yesterday morning. At the request of the fact checker, a Biden aide reviewed Biden's schedule for April 16, 2015. The vice president gave remarks at the White House Greek Independence Day reception between 5 and 6 p.m. and then spoke to the Congressional Fire Services Institute Gala from 6:30 to 8 p.m., the aide said. Which was, one would say, on that day, yesterday evening. What does Hunter Biden say? Asked to verify whether the email is genuine, Hunter Biden's attorney, George Maziers, told the fact checker, we have no idea where this came from and certainly cannot credit anything that Rudy Giuliani provided to the New York Post. But what I do know for certain is that purported meeting never happened. The story about the guy is the fun part to me. The beyond the fact that that releasing the story when they did is suspicious as hell. The fact that this guy John Paul McIsaac, who got the laptop the alleged laptop that he allegedly got from a masked stranger in a dark cloak on a rainy night, because he couldn't see his face, but he's fairly certain it was Hunter Biden later after Rudy Giuliani called him angrily. John Paul McIsaac, identified as the owner of the laptop repair shop after the Post story published, told reporters on Wednesday that Hunter Biden had actually dropped off 3 laptops at his shop last April. McIsaac initially suggested that because he is legally blind, he didn't recognize the younger Biden when he came into the shop, and only later determined that the laptop was his after noticing a sticker for the Beau Biden Foundation. But McIsaac later changed his story, claiming that Hunter Biden had actually introduced himself by name at the time. Throughout the interview, McIsaac seemed nervous and claimed, without elaborating, that his life was in danger. He described Trump's impeachment as a sham, vaguely implied the FBI is involved in a cover-up surrounding the alleged scandal, and repeatedly declined to answer whether he is or was working for Giuliani. On Thursday, Giuliani, who was not present at the laptop repair shop at the supposed drop-off, at the time of the supposed drop-off, told SiriusXM that Hunter Biden was definitely the person who had handed off the computer and that he was, quote, in an inebriated, heavily inebriated state at the time. So that's what you do. You know what I mean? You're partying. You got some crack. You've been drinking heavily. And once your brains start to grind on that spinning beach ball staring you in the face every time you open your laptop, it's, you know, so you I guess you get in an Uber, we hope. I mean, we hope that he was being safe. Or you get in a car, probably loaned to you by a Ukrainian oligarch who wants influence. You could drive around in a hot car when you buy crack. Good God. And so you get super drunk and drive in the dead of night to a laptop repair shop, drop off 3 laptops, don't get a receipt, and never come back for them. So, yeah, that sounds like a plan. All right, we'll be back right after this. We'll take some calls, too, over the next couple hours, 773-763-9278. In the next hour, we're going to talk about, we got another block, but in the next hour, we're going to be talking about Trump's declassifying via tweet every aspect of the Mueller investigation and everything around it, putting himself in severe jeopardy because the courts are starting to take his tweets seriously. We'll be back. And I have to say, according to the New York Post story, there's footage on the laptop of Beau Biden smoking crack and having sex. I'm gonna go out on a limb if the cigarette picture hasn't been photoshopped to have to swap it to pot, to be a joint instead of a cigarette. That if it was legit, he takes a bath and smokes pot. I mean, honestly, that sounds like a plot to 9 to 5 more than some sort of breakout story.
Hey, so Hal, we got that guy Peter is on hold.
Right.
And then David from Florida.
Okay, excellent.
Also, Amos is still here.
Okay, cool. I know it's Biden. I'd recognize those butt cheeks anywhere. Right, they're a dead ringer. Oh, by the way, if I say bye to Peter, that's the sign to hang up because he just gish gallops and tries to flood the zone.
Yeah, I've heard him. We have about 45 seconds.
Excellent.
Hey, just really quick, you may or may not know this, but do you come in with American Psycho on this last one, or do you go out with American Psycho?
Out.
Out. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's how he lets me know I'm at the bottom of the hour.
All right, sounds good. All right, we're coming back.
Ooh.
Sorry, I said it prematurely. 5 seconds.
No worries. I take that as a compliment, psychedelic mess. Welcome back to the show. It's the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio. We are here every Saturday, 11 to 1 Central Time, and of course, right after us is of course the great Dick Kay, and he will keep you abreast on all the local Chicago politics. And Doris Davenport leads us in, and so I'm sort of the national island in this, in the sea of local politics on Saturdays, and I'm glad to have you here with me. Now, we've got some callers on the line, so let's go to Amos first, because I think he was the first one in there. Let's grab him real quick, because there's more to this story that I want to get into, but let's grab a couple callers.
Hello, Hal.
Hey, Amos, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm spectacular. Go ahead.
Great. Well, happy 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and it's not over yet. We're riding the back of the tiger right now.
That's right.
But I just want to say, hey, hi out to all the peeps in the chat.
That's right.
Hi, you guys.
They're all yelling at you. It's nice.
Right. Yeah, I love them, and I know they love me, and it's
That's right.
a beautiful thing.
It is.
But I just want to say that I'm kind of getting fed up with the phony in our society. People just being completely inauthentic, and that includes Trump and everyone that you see them on a video and they're saying really horrible things and brandishing really horrible symbols, and then they get out there and they say, I'm not that person.
Right.
That's not who I am. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's exactly who you are.
Right.
Yeah, you got exposed, and you need to own it. And I'm really just tired of us giving people a pass, and it's not everyone that's giving them a pass, but they think they have licenses to come out and say, well, that thing I posted, that thing I said, that thing I did, that's not me. That's not the real me.
Right. Well, Amos, that's what the president did. The president did that this week with his retweet about the killing of Osama bin Laden, and that this story that was posted by some maniac that basically that Obama and Biden, I think, killed SEAL teams, the members of SEAL Team 6 that were on the Osama bin Laden raid, to hide the fact that it was just a fake and that Osama bin Laden was already dead. And those soldiers participated in a lie, and then they were just buried in the desert. Horrifying stuff. And the president's pushback when he was talking to Savannah Guthrie was, that was just a retweet. I put it out there, and people can just make up their own minds. That's not. First of all, that's not what happens when the president of the United States tweets. There's no make up your own mind about it. A leader says, this is what I believe. This is what I think. I agree with this point of view just by extent. Retweets are endorsements when it comes from a political leader. But so why would his
74-year-old man?
Yeah.
You should be able to say, hey, I sent that out there, and I agree with their position. Rather than say, I don't know them. Like you said with the Proud Boys. I don't know the Proud Boys, but I asked them to stand by and stand.
Stand back and stand by. Right.
You can't have it both ways.
Right.
You can't have it both ways.
But apparently that's the entirety, Amos, of their entire strategy is have it both ways, because you can have what it does create, and I think what there is a level of skill that's shown in using this strategy is that it causes the media, instead of focusing on what they actually what his actual crimes, they end up ping-ponging back and forth between multiple crazy stories that that are impossible to chase down, evaporate in 48 hours, but it keeps them off the scent of the greater grift. And I think that's, for him, that's what's going on. And the whole Ben Sass thing, he went after Ben Sass today because of what Ben Sass said in the call with his constituents. He was doing a virtual, a virtual town hall. Sass called him out, and the worst part about it is that Sass then goes out and defends him the rest of the time, votes with him 90% of the time, if not 100. I mean, So I know what you're talking about. I don't think you can continue to let people off the hook. If if they've got a bear emoji in their name, they're a Q follower, and they believe that Governor Whitmer had it coming. And they can't hide from that fact. That's the concern. Amy, she's still there? Did I still have you?
He's gone.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So, Amos, thanks for calling, man. Let's grab one more caller. Who do we
I
have?
can go to Peter.
Okay. Cool. What's happening? Hello, Peter.
Hello. Hal, how are you?
I'm spectacular. Thanks for calling. What's up?
Nothing like a crack addict son to screw up your campaign. This is going to come back and bite Biden. There's over 26,000 emails in that computer, and
Do you know they're authentic? Do you know they're authentic?
Hal,
Do you know they are authentic, Peter?
If true,
Okay, right.
Going to have to. Well, no. You guys used if true for 3.5 years with Trump on stuff there was no evidence of. So
Yes, there was. Yes, there was. No. All the emails, financial documents, and connectivity put together by the Mueller investigation, of which there were multiple charges, several people involved in the Trump campaign who are given jail time. All of that was done through genuine. They were literally subpoenaed emails and documents given by people, not a laptop found maybe by some guy who's a friend of Rudy Giuliani's who'd spent 2 years drumming up a story. Honest to God, man, you're going to compare those two things. So to you, to Peter, our FBI is on the same level, on investigative level. Our FBI and Department of Justice is on the exact same level as Rudy Giuliani and a laptop found at a guy's place in Delaware that has no metadata presented in the story. You're good with that. You're good with that.
It is disappointing that the media in this country are looking the other way when the former vice president, sold the office.
He didn't sell the office.
To Ukraine, but also to China.
He didn't sell the office to China.
Biden's son. There are emails referring to having to kick money up to the big guy. So it's either Joe Biden or the big guy is Barack Obama. Whichever way it comes out, Biden sold and profited. If this was Trump's,
no, he didn't. All right, tell you what, Peter, I'll tell you what. When an investigation is done of the hard drive and it's presented to the FBI and they can look at the metadata and it's legit, and then they start their own investigation, even though they've had it for a year and they didn't, and there was no charges filed. And if you think Bill Barr wouldn't have filed charges based on the contents of that hard drive if they were legit in a year, are you kidding me? Do you think Bill Barr, who's had that laptop, allegedly, that hard drive, which he got from Rudy Giuliani for a year, if you think that guy wouldn't have pressed charges against the former vice president during the primary or gone after Hunter Biden for influence peddling and filed charges against him when he's had that hard drive allegedly for a year? This story didn't come out last week. The Rudy Giuliani smokescreen of it came out last week. The hard drive itself was given to the FBI at the same time, according to the Post story. So Bill Barr is covering for Joe Biden? That's the story, Pete? Thanks for calling. We'll be back right after this. Jesus. I mean, literally, come on. It is the stupidest defense of the whole thing. If this was true, Bill Barr had it a year ago. Do I have to do all the thinking for everyone? Yeah. And here, by the way, have you heard anybody else in the media, in the pushback about this, say what I just said about this stupid story? A single person. Has anybody brought up the fact that Bill Barr, a total sycophant for the president, who ran interference, wrote his own introduction to the Mueller report and a summary of the Mueller report, released it, which was in contradiction to what it actually said, has been covering this president's ass the entire time, would have this alleged hard drive from this alleged laptop dropped off at this alleged repair shop for a year and not do anything with it if it showed influence peddling? If they could have given this to, Matt Getz and Jim Jordan and all these dickheads, are you kidding me? I love it how it appeared when he disappeared the last couple of weeks. Yeah. This was, like I said, this doesn't stand up to scrutiny, so it's one of those you want out the week before the election. And it's not growing. That's the problem. It's supposed, if it's real bad news, if you have a real October surprise, or that you can hold on to the details of it and they stand up, you release it earlier, beginning of the month. If it sucks and it's falling apart, you put it at the tail end, so the hint of it is what hopefully helps you in the election. Getting Barrett and all the crap is the Sheldon White House embarrassment of Barrett at the hearing. She didn't know a major legal precedent in labor. Yeah, she's not going to. She's not there to do that. Like, I'm sorry to tell you, but the Amy Coney Barrett decision, the fact that she's on she will be on the Supreme Court. She's gonna get confirmed. She's gonna get. It'll be a strict party line vote, more than likely. There may even be some Democrats that don't want to vote against a woman on the court and are hoping for the best and that kind of thing. But she's going to get on. The decision for someone like her, or her in particular, to be on the bench was made in 2016. So friggin' vote. This bullet left the chamber in 2016. And people are acting like the shots fired. Like, no. This is what elections are about. You think we're going to trust the Republicans? I don't know. He's a businessman, maybe an outsider. I don't know. That's the problem with voting third party, is it gives you Donald Trump. Right now, there used to be a point where maybe I felt like between Gore and Bush, which is absurd. That there's not that much. Thank you. There's not that much difference, and I think we should, have more than one party, so I'm going to vote for Ralph Nader. And like, no, this time you're playing Russian roulette with the country. And anything that doesn't directly impact voting against Donald Trump in a way that will impact the election is an abdication of responsibility, and therefore seizing the responsibility of 8,800 kids being dumped on the other side of the American-Mexican border. Yeah, Johnny's doing house stuff, so sorry. He'll be with us again, fear not. Libertarians aren't a political party. They're as much chaos agents as anything else. Libertarianism is not a coherent political strategy or at all. It's an absurdity. It's like if you voted based on the zodiac of the sign of the zodiac of the candidate.
"20 seconds.
Thank you. And who else do we have on the line? Do we still have another caller?
Just David.
Okay, cool.
David from Florida.
Okay, great.
listening to the Hal Sparks radio program,
Oh,
Mega
thanks.
Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at HalSparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn pus-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome back to the show. So we have another caller on the line, too. I want to get to him before I dive into the rest of this story. But it's David from Florida, I think. David, are you with us?
Greetings, time changer.
Yes.
Good to hear
Hi.
you, sir. Yeah. I'm wondering, just like you have your 666 fundraiser for that building on Fifth Avenue.
That's right. Anybody who wants to contribute, in case they don't know, that's been a while, so let me re-up it to everybody. If you want, and we now have the ability to do Venmo on my show. If you want, we're trying to raise enough money to buy 666 Fifth Avenue out from under Kushner, and I know people think I'll never get that kind of money, but he didn't have it either, so why not? Hope springs eternal. So become a member, vote, and donate today, and there you go. All right, so go ahead.
Or, no, I say use the money to create a parody of the old 666 Park Avenue, but make it about Fifth Avenue.
Right.
Yes. But
I don't think there is a 666 Park Avenue, though. You'd have to buy a sliver of land and name it, like the wedge between the buildings. But yeah.
My point is what to do as a TV parody of that show. But yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Right. So many of our elections seems to be a fight between nostalgia versus competence, and of course this time we pick nostalgia, just like Reagan and W. Maybe Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and others need to start a 420 fund to help Trump pay off his $420 million of debt to help ease his escape from the White House. Now, he still might find himself in the clutches of Letitia James, but at least his leg-breaking,
problems would be That's right. I think you're right about he should do like Trump
money, but yeah.
He could do Trump pot. He could do a Trump pot. This is the greatest pot you have ever had. Long draw, cool burn, everything's great. We've got several different flavors. Get your own vaporizer, Trump weed. Are we that far from him actually doing that? He's doing ads for Regeneron as it is. But yeah,
which is a company instead of a product. But he probably misspell it like 204 instead of 420. But yes, they might.
Right. Yes, he keeps saying I'm on Regeneron when the actual substance he took, REGN-CoV-2, is the substance they created, a monoclonal antibody treatment that gives you temporary immunity, they hope, to COVID-19. And helps your immune system fight it back. They don't know how long it lasts. They also don't know if your immune system's going to freak out 3 years from now and give you rheumatoid arthritis from it, which is a problem that comes from MABs other treatments like that, which are called MABs, monoclonal antibody treatments. Any drug you see where the official Go ahead.
Or a variation of you get chickenpox at 10, you get shingles at 60.
That's right.
Because we don't know what this version of COVID does.
No, we don't. And shingles, you could argue, are way worse than chickenpox, as far as the scarring on the body and the effect that they have. So there is every reason to believe, and maybe he doesn't care because it's aimed at older people, and he assumes that most of the people who end up getting that are older anyways and aren't going to live long enough to show the signs of it.
Non-white.
Right. Well, come on. The day they wanted to, they were like, open it up, was the day after the news came out that black and brown people are dying at a much higher percentage than white people. The timing was disgusting and completely transparent.
You get the eugenics fantasy without the hardware, and I say that as someone who has visited the inside of an Auschwitz gas chamber.
Right. Yeah. Can you imagine if
that's a nature world,
somebody floated, maybe the Chinese did us a favor, right, in these circles. You're absolutely right. And by the way, I just looked up 666 Park Avenue. I was not aware of the show, and now I have a new binge thanks to you. It only had one season, though. So, it should be over fairly quickly. Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm here. I introduced you to Time Changer and all those.
That's right.
Shows, so yes.
That's true. Well, and those And and Clean Flicks or whatever, the Netflix equivalent of Christianity is, I got the because of you, I got the 3-month free. I didn't keep my subscription, but all the oh god, just the horrifying programming. It's like if
Yes, but have
all
you seen the Reliant with Kevin Sorbo and his Antifa,
yes,
dystopia,
right, and all the Left Behind sequels,
all the Outlaws, all guns,
and then prequels where everybody's older than they were. Yeah, exactly. It's like imagine if all the Lifetime films, for those that don't know what we're talking about, imagine if all the Lifetime films were written with hammers with crosses on them. Like that's like, and you watch them by having them hammered into your forehead. It's that subtle. It's pretty terrible. So, anyways, thank you for the call. Yeah, but go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. Oh, did I lose him? Man, you're fast, Nico. You got to give him a little soft out. That's appreciate the call. So there's something I want to continue with on this this nonsense New York Post story. The big phrase you're gonna keep hearing over the next 2 weeks is "if true." The problem is you have to take it in context. As my mother has always said, consider the source. And in this case, because Trump and Giuliani and all these guys have been dragging this nonsense forever, it would be one thing if they had just been talking about this in the news and they had no recourse. If they weren't candidates, if they were just well-known citizens and famous people, former politicians who were talking about this. But Donald Trump has the kind of access through the DOJ and Bill Barr that no other president has used certainly since Hoover. And and I guess that was an inverted form because most presidents feared Hoover more than the other way around. But there are outlets the president can use to find out these kind of stories and prosecute any wrongdoing that they see. But every single time they've done this, Hillary's emails, the unmasking story, which is, by the way, the fact that story fell apart is one of the biggest drops in the, it is certainly the biggest drop of the election cycle, legit, because Trump literally at every campaign stop, in every debate, and in every town hall has uttered the words, "They spied on my campaign and we caught them cold." They constantly, that's one of his refrains that he always uses. They spied on my campaign and we caught them cold. When he says that, what he's referring to very specifically is the unmasking scandal around Mike Flynn. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about, the wiretaps on Sergei Kislyak. He's not talking about them getting the emails from Paul Manafort. He's not talking about the fact that they, Papadopoulos blabbed to an Australian agent while drunk at a bar. He's not talking about those moments where loose lips have sunk their ships. He's talking about the unmasking scandal. This is how he refers to it. They spied on my campaign and we caught them cold. The unmasking investigation that Bill Barr, at the insistence of the president, went through was scuttled a week ago last Friday on a Friday night news dump as if it was nothing, while Bill Barr is not, insofar as I know, he's not been seen publicly since I think about the time that Chris Christie came down with COVID. And I don't know if there's an official statement about that. I'd have to look it up. But in that time, whether he's sick or just out of public view or taking advantage of the fact that he could be out of public view, that's when that story dropped. And that was it. That's the end of it. The Justice Department, even with Bill Barr at the head, could not find anything illegal in the unmasking of people. Now, again, to any obvious viewer or listener of this story, if the president and the vice president and all these other people had to, quote unquote, unmask who was engaged in these conversations, then they didn't know who it was. Honestly, they have to unmask the person and who the number belongs to find out that it was Mike Flynn. That was the shocking part. It's like arguing that the end of every Scooby-Doo episode is cheating. It's embarrassing. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Giuliani and others are doing a full court press on this. The hint of impropriety story that's being played out on Hannity and others shows the fact that they don't buy it either. Hannity doesn't buy this. Tucker doesn't buy this. None of the Fox people buy this. Murdoch owns the New York Post, so they got to carry the water. But they're not going to go all in on this because it's going to turn out to be crap. Plus, knowing the fact that Michael Cohen did favors for Sean Hannity, I'm guessing there are similar pictures floating around out there, and he doesn't want a backlash. We'll be back. There we go. I'm just calling up a story, and then I want to do this.
All right, we got one caller, Sherry. She wants to talk about the voting early in Las Vegas.
Okay, great.
Sorry about dropping that guy.
No problem. It happens sometimes. We understand. Unless unless I specifically
Sorry,
want
we're coming back in 10 seconds too.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it. We're all good. Yeah. So the president of the United States retweeted a QAnon conspiracy after not refusing to denounce the QAnons. Which, by the way, the entire substructure of QAnon is a smokescreen to protect Donald Trump from his connections to Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, his financial ties, and all this stuff. It is effectively a gish gallop of garbage and puzzles to keep people busy so they don't pay attention to who the president actually is. And there's a cult draw to it. I don't think so. Okay, I would equate this to like Jim and Tammy Baker. Jim and Tammy Baker were complete and utter frauds, and I would argue still are. Hucksters posing as Christians, selling false prophecies and manipulations of Bible verses as their own personal gospel, and making, taking prayer donations from people, opening the envelope, taking out the money, never reading the prayer, or correspondence, throwing it in the garbage, and moving on. That said, many of the people who watched their show were true believers and fairly decent people who believed, that they, were looking for salvation. We're looking, for a reflection of their beliefs in Christianity. They were just mistaken in putting their faith in those people. So it does not essentially make a direct line from the evil and disgusting behavior of Jim and Tammy Baker to the people who watched their show. And, Pat Robertson, same ilk. Same thing applies to, I think, the QAnon folks. The Q, whoever it is, or whoever they are, the substructure that puts it out, and the baseline that promotes it, which is, and the Russian bots that keep it afloat, are absolutely manipulating the U.S. electorate with conspiracy theories and messing with people's minds, and are doing it to benefit Donald John Trump and keep many of his personal failings and his financial dealings hidden. And so there very well may be QAnon people who are misguided but decent people. But the ones who are, fundamentally pushing the large parts of this are doing it for, the attention that it gets them. And of course, several may well be paid to do it. But the story that was put out was that alleged that Biden and Obama, of course it leads with Biden's name because it must have been his idea, because he's running for office against the only guy who's stopping the pedophile network, Donald John Trump, who apparently years ago, sort of how Obama's parents knew he was going to be president, so they faked a birth certificate a long time ago, and planted a story in the Honolulu Times or whatever that he'd been born in an effort to hide the fact that he was actually a foreign agent. On a similar level, Trump, I guess, started hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and all of his friends and Ghislaine Maxwell, and started partying with them years ago. So as like an undercover agent, I guess, is that what we're supposed to believe? With the same kind of deep psycho timing? All right. Trump retweeted an article from an account that was a QAnon account, alleging that Biden and Obama may have had SEAL Team 6 killed and that bin Laden is still alive, and apparently that Obama only killed bin Laden's body double. The tweet linked to an article written by an author, Carrie Donovan, who identifies, quote, as an ex-community organizer who is now a homeschool mom. And a QAnon account called Midnight Rider 1111, whatever. But it appears to have been banned from Twitter after Trump retweeted it because they got, and it wasn't because of that directly, they got dumped because they were a Q account. Last Tuesday night, Trump retweeted about the conspiracy theory, again sharing a tweet from a separate QAnon-linked account, linking to a video in which Nick No, identified by the Daily Beast as a conservative personality and father of former Navy SEAL who died in Benghazi, claims Hillary Clinton and Biden colluded with Iran to arrange for bin Laden to be transferred to Pakistan for Obama's trophy kill right before his re-election, which, of course, contradicts the idea that they killed a body double, but whatever. The president you can just think, was it really killed? And the reason that Trump retweeted this is 100% because the killing of Baghdadi and the killing of Soleimani aren't getting the kind of ratings bump that killing Osama bin Laden did, attention-wise. And that's why this is. So to undercut the belief behind the Osama bin Laden attempted capture and kill, and then kill, he's putting this story up. This is to undermine that, because his is, well, mine might not be as good, but is his even real? That's the storyline. And Trump's response to it, when Savannah Guthrie said it was, people can just make up their minds. People can just put this out. They can just make up their own minds. All this is, by the way, smoke, along with the Hunter Biden New York Post story, to hide the fact that a recent story came out. I mean, there's a couple of these, but they have been looking into, the FBI and others have been looking into this connection between Trump and an infusion of cash in the end of his campaign in 2016 that he got at the last minute, and an Egyptian bank. For more than 3 years, federal prosecutors investigated whether money flowing through an Egyptian state-owned bank could have backed millions of dollars Donald Trump donated to his own campaign days before he won the 2016 election. Multiple sources familiar with the investigation told CNN. By the way, Sheldon Adelson just dumped $76 million into the Trump campaign. I think Trump would have been better off just taking the money, giving the IRS back his money, and then saying, I'm no longer under audit, and releasing his taxes so people can look. I'm kidding. All right. The investigation, which both predated and outlasted special counsel Robert Mueller's probe, but it was entwined in it. So when Trump said, I'm declassifying all of these documents, that means everything. Examined whether there was an illegal foreign campaign contribution. It represents one of the most prolonged efforts by federal investigators to understand the president's foreign financial ties and became a significant but hidden part of the special counsel's pursuits. That's the part that really stands out. A significant but hidden part of the special counsel's pursuit. The investigation was kept so secret that at one point investigators locked down an entire floor of federal courthouses in Washington, D.C. so Mueller's team could fight for the Egyptian bank's records in closed-door court proceedings following a grand jury subpoena. The probe, which closed this summer with no charges filed, has never before been described publicly. Now, they never, they were denied the records, and the DOJ said you're not allowed to look. That's why it was shut down. It wasn't shut down because they looked and didn't find anything, like the unmasking story where they had access to everything. It was shut down because the DOJ wanted it so under Barr, which again goes to the story. If the FBI and the DOJ under Bill Barr had the hard drive that the New York Post is using as evidence in their story for a year, are we to believe that in a year, with the help of Rudy Giuliani and the pressure of the President of the United States, that Bill Barr couldn't have found a smoking gun within it and handed it over to the, congressional Republicans who would have gladly, yelled about it on the floor ad nauseum during the entirety of the primaries. They didn't just find it. It didn't just break. They've been teeing this up for a year. They've had this, and ultimately, by choosing not to release it until now, proves effectively that they themselves know it not to be authentic. But what it covers is this. One of the things it covers is that prosecutors suspected there could be a link between the Egyptian bank and Trump's campaign contribution, according to several of the sources, but they could never prove a connection, mainly because they weren't allowed to look. It's not clear that investigators ever had concrete evidence of a relevant bank transfer from the Egyptian bank, but multiple sources said there was sufficient information to justify the subpoena and keep the criminal campaign finance investigation open after the Mueller probe ended. CNN learned of the Egyptian investigation from more than a dozen sources familiar with the effort, as well as through hints in public records, including newly released court documents and Mueller witness interviews called 302s that CNN and BuzzFeed obtained through lawsuits. Now, Trump, this is the part that is going to. We're a couple of weeks and change from the election. And a lot of this stuff isn't going to play out until after the election. And if the polls hold strong and people vote, and they must vote, you must vote. And again, it has nothing to do with whether your case is close or if you think your vote won't matter because the state that you're in usually goes one way. Every single vote counts. Because it either tightens the margin for the mandate in a state that the majority goes for, or it's enough to flip the state. And there are enough people who think their vote doesn't count or won't count because of the majority that they believe exists in their state to flip every election. Every single one, red or blue. If every person who legally had the right and the ability to vote did so, a good portion of the states would permanently shift in color because people would recognize that they think that the person next to them thinks it as well, but they don't articulate it. Beyond just it, yeah, in our chat room saying, and there are local benefits as well, voting for your state senator, voting for who's in charge of your schools, all that kind of stuff. There's enough of you to flip all that. One single campaign can turn an entire school board. Trust me, I know. We'll be back right after this. So,
All right, so we have 3 callers: Sherry from Chicago, Roosevelt from Chicago, and then Robert from Florida.
Cool.
We have about 40 seconds.
Cool. I'm drinking tea, by the way. Jasmine iced tea. For those that were asking earlier. Oh, ad time. Well, thanks. I will, I'll do precisely that. Reload. Page. Reload the page. Are we up on? Oh, yeah, we're up on everything. I always have those little mild panic attacks. Like, oh, did one of the channels not start? Might be moving to where I can get us on Instagram TV as well. So
10 seconds.
Thank you. If it's worth it. You knew. Peppermint tea with ginger and honey is amazing. I would have to have ginger and honey in it because mint teas dry me out. Welcome back to the show. You can, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free as part of your Amazon Prime and contribute to the show really easily. Twitch.tv/HalSparks. That's right. If you subscribe with Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. That's right. You can also become a patron. Patreon.com/HalSparks. I know you know about Patreon at this point because a lot of people are using it. Some of them, like your favorites, like Stephanie Miller, are starting to use it because I convinced them to do so. Stuttering John also is now using, he's now on Patreon as well. And I help those folks get it started because I think it's a great way for you to, vote with your dollar and help us out. Legitimately and allow us to continue the work that we do. So there you go. All right. So we have a bunch of callers, but I want to say this before we get into it. So Trump tweeted out a couple of weeks ago, "I have fully authorized the total declassification of all and any and all documents pertaining to the single greatest political crime, all caps, in American history, the Russia hoax." President tweeted on October 6th, "Likewise, the Hillary Clinton email scandal, no redactions." Okay, so a judge is now asking the president's lawyers, who have argued that that's not, he doesn't really mean that. We're what he really means to say. If the president, what he says in those situations, because that's a declarative statement. That's not like we need to fully declassify. It's I have fully, meaning past tense, meaning to somebody. Trump's blanket statement came the day after he returned to the White House from 3 days of treatment for the novel coronavirus. The tweet has since created a headache for government lawyers in pending open records lawsuits filed by news organizations, BuzzFeed, New York Times, Washington Post, seeking fuller disclosure of Special Counsel Robert S. Mueller III's report and investigative materials. Associate Deputy Attorney General Bradley Weinsheimer maintained in a court filing Tuesday that the White House counsel's office informed the Justice Department that notwithstanding the president's statement, there is no order requiring wholesale declassification or disclosure of documents at issue. It seems like there is. At Friday's hearing, however, the Judge Reggie Walton of the U.S. District Court of D.C. expressed bafflement at the claim that President Trump's words were not to be believed. I think the American public has the right to rely on what the president says his intention is, Walton says. It seems to me that when a president makes a clear, unambiguous statement of what his intention is, that I can't rely on the White House counsel's office saying, well, that's not his intent. The judge said in a hearing conducted by video conference because of the coronavirus pandemic. Walton directed the department by noon Tuesday, that's this Tuesday, to clarify with Trump or an individual who has conferred directly with the president whether Trump had intended to order the declassification and release of Mueller report materials without redaction. The judge cited the urgency of releasing as much information as possible in the remaining days before the election. So they've got till Tuesday for the president or somebody who represents the president, which means they need to show the judge and the lawyers for the people and for BuzzFeed and for New York Times and Washington Post I would suggest ask to see proof that they directly had a conversation with the president himself again about this and what the contents of that conversation were. Because if he says this in his email and then it comes out in court and it'll be part of the story that he's going, yeah, no, what I mean is just this stuff that makes her look bad and any of our stuff just redact that. Then obviously that should be a piece of information that the news organizations that are seeking the FOIA requests should know, one would think. Okay, so let's take some callers real quick. Before we run out of time in this hour, as I often do. Who do we have, Nico? Are you there? Am I still in the air? Did I go off the air? Am I there? Nico, are you there?
Sherry.
Oh, yeah, good. Okay. Oh, hi, there she is. Hi, Sherry. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Listen, I used to live in Chicago, recently moved back to Las Vegas. But when I was in Chicago, I used to listen to you every Saturday, and I'm wondering, who is this little white man who hums and ums and hams and hums? It's like, I can't listen to him anymore. But when I got past that, between that and your Donald Trump sound alike, I crack up every single Saturday.
Well, thank you. I hem and haw a lot less now that the technology is a little better. Part of my umming and stuff was because behind the scenes on my show, the audio system that connects me to Chicago or from wherever I was would always be collapsing around me. So while I'm trying to carry on a conversation, I was putting out multiple fires many, many times. So as that's gotten better, so has my ease of speech. But I apologize for the early days of too much umming. Now I hope to use most of them more as a verbal affect than a mistake. But go ahead. And you're in Vegas now. So and as am I currently. Although my official residence is in LA. Yeah, as my official residence is in LA, and I vote in California elections because I'm there most of the time. But during the lockdown, my girlfriend and I are here so we could be together during all this stuff.
Okay, I'm at the Boulevard Mall, and we're in line for early voting, and the lines, I must tell you, are pretty long. It looks like the turnout's going to be pretty good. And from what I understand from what the other poll workers is that all of the temporarily early voting
locations
places are, the lines are long there too. So it's looking good. And also, I hope you didn't take any offense to me calling you little place.
Not at all.
I didn't mean to put it
Nope.
that way. It's just that, who's this young kid in here that's hemming and hawing? I mean, but
right. Fear not.
Your mouth was the truth.
I understand. Yes. The ums, I'm just here to tell you that the ums and the uhs were also true in that I was constantly just like, why is this failing? What is happening? Why won't my, just the old tie line enough was enough for me to just stare at it most shows and go, please don't blow up. Please don't explode on my desk in this weird hotel room. But so you're in line to vote right now?
Yeah.
Great. And what does it look like? I mean, are people socially distancing for the most part, or is it fairly cramped?
Everybody has on masks.
Okay,
every
good.
single person has on masks, and yes, we have social distancing.
Right.
I mean, I'm not even sure if they'll let you vote. You didn't have a mask. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you that everybody here has on masks, and the line continues to go. It's moving, but
Right. Well, I think, I think a lot of people feel like there's a combination of things. Is that a lot of people, after, Donald Trump's arguments about, early voting or specifically mail-in voting and absentee balloting and his being all over the map on that has driven a lot of people on his side to distrust the process. Most of them, 76% of Trump supporters, don't trust the mail in sending their ballot in because they think, I don't know why, they think DeJoy would scuttle their vote over someone else's. They just know that if there is any ballot shenanigans, everybody's gets thrown out and they get confused about that. So what they're planning on doing is a big bum rush on the day. I think a lot of people, though, yourself included, I'm curious about this. If you're not doing mail-in voting, are going, okay, maybe if I go early, there will be more spacing. It will be safer, effectively, if I, as we pace out the number of people who need to vote over the course of a couple of weeks, as opposed to everybody, 2 days beforehand being down there and the lines being both long and dense. Was that part of your thinking?
No, my part of thinking is that I wanted to be part of, of the process. Waiting out here, I mean, those folks, where was it in Texas where they were waiting for 12 hours in line?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's crazy. And I said, well, if they can do 12, I can at least do 6. So
yeah, right. That's great.
Also, I look forward to seeing you at Sexy Liberal 5 next Saturday.
That's right. Yes, it's good. It's very exciting. Yeah. We've been shooting all week. I had wig head really bad for 2 days because of all the shooting we've been doing.
That's what I hear on Stephanie Miller's show all the time.
Oh, that's great.
I better let you go.
I appreciate it.
On the phone line, but I finally got in after living in Chicago for 10 years, trying to call you and never get through. I had to move to Las Vegas to finally get through. But
I appreciate it. I really do. Yes. Well, be safe. Be safe and yes, be safe and we're all very proud of you for voting. We'll talk to you soon. Let us know how the process was. Call back next week too before the Sexy Liberal show and let us know how it turned out, what the wait time was and all that kind of stuff. I'm curious to know. I don't know that we have time for another caller before the break, but I want to the story about this FOIA request by BuzzFeed, CNN, the Electronic Privacy Information Center, and Washington Post, New York Times, which is attached to those suits. Judge Walton was saying, I think I need something more emphatic than this. In fact, the president's position and not just the White House counsel's position. If we're going to get this information out before the election, we need to get this next week. So this ruling means that they come back before him on Tuesday, and I'm sure it'll give... I'm a big fan of Rachel Maddow's transcript theater that she does. And I think she's going to have plenty to work with from Tuesday's reading. Because they're either going to come back with an actual statement from the president who won't back down from doing this because he doesn't know any better. And he's not listening to his lawyers and he thinks this information helps him. When it does not. I can't state this emphatically enough. The information, the grand jury testimony, the behind-the-scenes investigations, the pushback by the DOJ against the Mueller team being able to look into any of Trump's previous financial dealings in connection to his motive and opportunity for being bribed or coerced or compromised into, either benefiting Russian oligarchs and thereby himself financially, or doing something because Vladimir Putin told him to. All of that information is tangential to this, and a declarative statement like the president made will release all of that stuff. And there is no way this benefits the president. His lawyers right now are sweating trying to get him. I mean, he's out doing rallies where he's talking about this stuff, where he very well may say that, my lawyers came to me and they want to not show this, but I'm saying show it all. Like, this is the client they are working with. And this is, I don't know how they handle him in this circumstance. Especially, considering he may either have dexamethasone or COVID brain and is not firing on all cylinders currently.
The executives. So these Burmisia, they say, pronounce it Burmisia.
Yeah, so if that's your client...
To me, Corona means Italy.
You're in trouble. Seriously. We'll be back with more of your calls right after this. 773-763-9278. Yeah,
Soon it's going to be perfecto.
Uh-huh. He was talking about the death rate.
Perfecto.
Uh-huh. Can't stop lying. I don't I need to look and see real quick. I know I'm gonna open too many pages and get myself in trouble. But do we have the illegal thing clip somewhere? Let's see if I can find it. Which was just so awful. My reading face. I got to work on it. Okay, yeah. No, it was yesterday. Fear not.
All right, we still have Roosevelt, Bob, and Robert.
Okay, cool. We'll take those in that order then.
Sounds good. You have about a minute.
Cool. And we'll find it later. His pronunciation of illegal last night was off the charts. Bless you. Please take Bob's call to make sure he's doing okay. Yes. Oh, is that old Bob? Is it old Bob, Nico?
No. It's the same guy. Oh, we're coming back. Sorry.
Okay, cool. No problem. We'll get there.
Welcome back to the HalSparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
Welcome back to the show. So, let's grab our callers because we've got a little time left, and I want to make sure everybody gets in. So, who do we have first, Nico?
We have Roosevelt from Chicago.
Excellent. Hey, Roosevelt, welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
I want to add on to what you said about Bill Barr.
Yeah.
How come all that was kept under wraps? Because it was a nothing burger, and that happened 4 days ago.
Yes.
So Trump is pulling his hair because his buddy Bill Barr and the other minions. Who's the other guy? Pompeo.
Yes.
These guys can't find anything.
Nope.
They're running around like chickens without a head. So
Roosevelt, like Giuliani spent 2 years in Ukraine, Russia, and Italy chasing this stupid story down, and their big evidence comes from a Delaware laptop shop? Are you kidding me? Like what? And
hell, Why don't we
Yeah.
get rid of the FBI and put Giuliani in charge?
So yeah.
Because it seems like FBI doesn't do its job, right?
Yeah. How is it? They should base a character. They should base a character on Criminal Minds on Giuliani, who just literally lets every serial killer go because he's trying to help a friend. But go ahead. Sorry.
Let me ask you 3 questions, and I'm going to hang up.
Sure.
Would you trust Trump with your finances, with your money? Because apparently, according to Forbes, now he owes $1 billion.
Yeah, 1.1. Yep.
Yeah, he laughed it off at that town hall when that young lady was asking him about owning $400 million. Now it was revealed there was $1 billion.
Yep.
So to all your Trump supporters, would you trust them with that? Would you trust them with a vaccine? Would you trust them with a vaccine?
They're not taking it.
Do you trust them? And do you trust him that he's a man of the cloth, that he's a man of God? That's all I have to say, Hal.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks, Roosevelt. I'll answer those as quickly as I can. Thanks for calling, man. Be safe. Here's no. And understand this. Even beyond, do you trust Donald Trump with his 6 bankruptcies and his? I mean, they're gonna literally blow up the Taj Mahal, basically the day Biden is inaugurated. But before Hunter Biden and Rosemont Seneca were involved in Burisma, it was completely corrupt and it was undermining the stability of the entire Ukrainian oil and gas sector. And after they got involved, it is a functioning oil and gas sector, much to the chagrin of the Russian government and Vladimir Putin. They have been trying to scuttle all the business interests within Ukraine, all the major sectors, retail, everything. They've been trying to put all these sock puppets in and gut it from the inside, and they were unable to do so because Rosemont Seneca ran interference. Not only if you had money to invest, would you invest it in Donald Trump's organization, Good Money After Bad, or would you invest it in what Rosemont Seneca would want to do with it, or would advise you to do with it? Because they're turning a profit, the Trump organization is not. And we'll talk about Shokin all you want. Let's take the next caller. I think it's Bob. Is that who's there?
Yep, Bob.
Yeah. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Hal. First, just a quick shout out to America's greatest patriots, those that are willing to wait hours in line to vote.
Yes.
God bless you. And second of all, the big story that did not happen yesterday, which might qualify as a happy ending, is the day-long crowing by Trump on Twitter about crushing Biden in the ratings head-to-head.
Right.
He had that planned all day for Friday.
That's right.
He's got to be the most pissed he has ever been since at least the Tulsa rally. And I'd love to hear, I haven't heard anything about it really.
Nope.
I'd love to hear the ratings that they did hold up that Biden won the battle. And I'd also just like to know any inside account of how pissed he is.
Right. Oh, that'll come out. By the way, not only did he beat him in the actual television ratings, but this is the first time that they specifically tracked, because they know Trump leans this way, the online ratings as well. So on the television side, and as far as YouTube, on both their primary campaign channels versus what was on television. On television, Biden beat Trump 12.7 million to 10.4 million, and he beat Trump 750,000 on the YouTube channel direct viewers and in the chat room to 300,000 on Trump's. Like a major drop off. And if you're talking about an enthusiasm, I would argue that what you said right out of the gate points to enthusiasm by voters. Trump has a bunch of the same people showing up at the same rallies, hearing the same garbage every time, and Biden's voters are showing their enthusiasm by standing in line for 8 to 12 hours to actually vote. I don't care how many boat parades you have. You can have 10. Take your boat out 10 times. You only get to vote once. And that it's no indication. So I appreciate the call. Let me grab my last one before we run out of time. But go ahead. Yes, stay in line, vote. Absolutely. It was 700K to 300K on their YouTube channels. 12 million to 10 million on the actual ratings. Trump lost in both measures. Who's our last caller? I want to make sure I get them in.
Robert from Florida.
Excellent. Robert in Florida. How are you, brother? I appreciate I appreciate your answer tweets, by the way, when your little videos you're pegging on there. It's nice to see them.
I appreciate the shout out. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
We watched the guy for 2 weeks telling everybody in America how smart he was by taking a test. Person, women, man, camera, TV. And then he asked me again later, person, man, women. This is the guy, he wants you to reinforce that he's a smart guy, but he can't tell you if he got a COVID test, the night of the debate with Joe Biden. I don't remember.
Yeah, he can't.
I
don't
read, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let me go real fast, real quick.
Yeah.
With the last caller, he made a great point with the ratings. If those numbers were reversed and those were Trump's numbers over Biden, he would use that in a court case.
He'd be running ads on it.
They begged me to come on. They said, hey, listen, we got an open spot. Why don't you come on? No pre anything, and I got more people watching me than the Sleepy Joe guy over there. He would have used that to beat Joe over the head with. And,
absolutely.
I want to let you know, I'm pretty sure you got some things that you want to say before you close it out. So I want to say thank you for letting me on. And,
absolutely.
And Stephanie Miller's show's coming on next week. We're going to plug that.
That's right. Yeah, next week is thanks, Robert. Appreciate it, brother. Be safe. The Sexy Liberal virtual tour episode 5 is going. Tickets are on sale now. You can watch it on Saturday, a week from today. And there's a VIP, and then there's a meet and grope, the meet and grope afterwards. And then there's a Sunday brunch as well the next day that you can kind of hang out with us and talk afterwards. Tickets are on sale at sexyliberal.com. There's the big pitch. We didn't even get into the fact that one of Trump's big sales pitches since the debate he actually showed up for was that Biden said super predator, and that he said it very loudly and very forcefully, and he said very forcefully super predator. Biden's never used the term. That's a Hillary Clinton term that they pegged her with, that she mentioned. That's not something Biden ever said. So Trump, in his weird, addled mind, is still calling out, battle cries from 2016. We're seeing on our side, we are running a good and decent man with a history of legislative accomplishments and an interest in the betterment of all Americans, whether they are Republican or Democrat, whether they are for him or against him, for the betterment of the country as a whole. And on the other side, we are running against the Republicans are running a broken record, effectively. And
Michigan gave us Motang.
At some point, we are going to hear
we're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges.
Something from this president that might be the tipping point, ultimately. But the most important thing is, and I think the message from all of our callers overall today too, is vote, with the exception of Peter, I guess. Everybody wants you to remind you to vote. And what I would say is, somebody brought up in the chat room, can we talk about third parties and whatnot? Here's what I would say to you, diehard third-party wannabes. Get them on the board in your state. Develop an internal government in your state before you ever go for federal office. This top-down approach is damaging to the electorate and makes no case about the functionality of your actual party. If and when the Green Party is the dominant party in Washington State, and then they have the City Council of Seattle, they have the mayors, they have the school boards, they have the governorship, and then they run someone for a House seat. That's how you build a party, because you're not just showing that you exist, but that the structure of how you would run things works. It is a functional system, not just that you have good ideas or you think things would be better. You've shown them to do so over time. So to all my, my Green Party friends and other outliers, vote for the party that most aligns with your values of the two major parties in all federal elections, House, Senate, and presidency, like an adult. And then if you want to vote third party, look into school boards, judges who may be running on a different measure, who may be, pro-legalization or those kind of things, even though the Democrats are pro-legalization. You get my point. That's the important thing. Appreciate you guys. See you next week. Thanks, Nico. Thanks, everybody. Love you, Johnny Million. We'll see you next week. And everybody stick around for the post show on my Twitch stream or Dick K. So there we go.
All right, thanks, Hal.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nico. Great job. Appreciate it.
All right, man. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, so let me sign off on these. How about go? Cut off clean feed. I think we're alone now. It's just you guys and me around. Yeah, so this so the radio show just goes so fast these days compared to it. I even had, let me show you. I even had this clip queued up and never got to it.
So we gotta get rid of the ambassador. She's still left over from the Clinton administration.
Where the ambassador, where Ukraine?
Yeah, and she's basically walking around telling everybody, wait, he's gonna get impeached.
The president responds pretty much instantly and quite aggressively to the idea that he's got an ambassador in Ukraine who's not on his side.
Get rid of her.
Correct. One of the first
Okay,
things
get her out
that
tomorrow.
will,
I don't care. Get her out tomorrow. Take her out. Okay?
Excellent.
Do it.
Yeah. If you'll recall that, that's from Lev Parnas talking with the president, who, this is the Washington Post, but this was fairly widely reported. This was about Marie Yovanovitch. That's Lev Parnas with Rudy Giuliani, Lev and Igor, and Mike Pence, and Trump. And I know these, I get pictures taken. People come to the White House. They just, I don't really know them. I get you never heard the actual audio of that?
$125,000 to America First, which is the main pro-Trump super PAC. And the two of them are given access to a small roundtable dinner with the President of the United States at the Trump Hotel in April of 2018.
So that's where this audio comes from.
President?
So they were videotaping.
Froman was recording throughout the meal and caught this exchange between Parnas and the president.
So we gotta get rid of the ambassador. She's still left over from the Clinton administration.
Where the ambassador, where Ukraine?
Yeah, and she's basically walking around telling everybody, wait, he's gonna get impeached.
The president responds pretty much instantly and quite aggressively to the idea that he's got an ambassador in Ukraine who's not on his side.
Get rid of her.
Correct. One of the first
Okay,
things
get her out
that
tomorrow.
will,
I don't care. Get her out tomorrow. Take her out. Okay?
Excellent.
Do it.
So that was the recording that, a lot of people saw that. The title of this video is The Real Story of Rudy Giuliani's Mission for Trump in Ukraine from the Washington Post. Yeah. Let me grab the link. I'll drop it into the chat so you guys can have it. Here you go. That's it. Move the, oh, sorry. I put the, whoops. I put the Venmo there to cover the Right Side Media thing. Hold on. Whoops. Back in here. Venmo thing. Click. I have to click through all these things. Yes. Drag it up here. Put it in the corner. Doobity-doo. There you go. Is that better? It's over my head now, but whatever. I'll make it smaller eventually. I love doing stuff on the fly. It's fun. It's all the umming and that drove that lady crazy. There you go. Might have to blow your TV, use a higher res to get that, but you get the point. Yeah. So this was the story of Giuliani going over there. Here, let's run back up to the top of this. Because they go through
Under investigation! Rudy Giuliani under fire for his plan to travel to Ukraine and actively push for investigations that could help the president's re-election.
The Ukrainians brought me substantial evidence of Ukrainian collusion with Hillary Clinton.
I think Rudy is...
Yeah, and remember, all this stuff before they went to Biden on this was about Hillary Clinton. They were still grinding about how, no, Hillary Clinton was colluding with an ally against Russia and a Russian agent.
Been a great crime fighter. He looks for corruption wherever he goes.
Yeah, because that's how he makes a living.
Murkiness and corruption of the Ukrainian political system is being weaponized.
It's this the movie trailer music is a little aggravating.
What could be called kind of shadow politics.
You think? The president's shadow. Now, I don't know that it's lost on anybody that the stripes that they put that are kind of American flag stripes and whatever look like they're made out of cocaine. I don't know if that's a subtle dig.
There's no.
Are you doing the? If JFK is making an appearance, man, that would be an October surprise.
I'm the first person to ever get impeached, and there's no crime.
Boo. Just because you don't understand the law and you think you have the right as president to threaten people because you don't understand that when Biden was talking about Victor Shokin and getting the prosecutor removed, he was acting on behalf of the United States government, the administration, the Congress, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, all of our allies, Germany, France. They all knew this dude was a criminal and a sock puppet. And they couldn't get him loose.
The impeachment of Donald Trump has divided and captivated the country.
Democrats launching their case against President Trump, arguing he abused his power.
Committee will come to order.
It is a complex tale of corruption and misinformation. It involves Ukrainian
really cool drone footage.
Tycoons and.
Can I just say that for the record, I miss snow right now, really bad. I want to see snow. I've been wanting to see snow for a while. So somebody asked me about the Sousa documentary last night, which, yes, Summer and I both watched it together. We wept openly at least 5 times. Like, I was doing that little, I was spooning with Summer, we're watching, and she had to know when I was crying, because I was just like, I would have those little, where your body lurches a little bit, like, I'm not going to cry, and then you do the little mini jerk, like, all right, it's coming. Just tears. Like, it was beautiful. The documentary on the White House photographer that followed Obama around, Pete Sousa. It was on MSNBC last night, and seriously, bet you don't miss shoveling snow. I love shoveling snow. I don't miss it at all. It was on MSNBC, yeah. So they played it last night. If you have MSNBC as a channel on your cable, you probably have it on demand. You can watch it again. It was beautiful. It was both heartbreaking and hopeful at the same time. There were parts of it where I was like, it is so friggin' sad we have somebody like Donald Trump in that same office that Obama sat in. And even, he was a photographer for Reagan as well, and didn't have a very high opinion of Reagan overall. And clearly it had issues with his handling of the AIDS crisis. But he's the guy who took the picture of Reagan holding a black child with AIDS, a baby that was AIDS infected, and which, affected the stigma of AIDS drastically in the world, letting that picture come out. Trump has a permanent lid on the White House photographer. They do official photographs and then everybody's broomed out. He doesn't let anybody around. He doesn't release the White House logs. It's all behind closed doors. It's all hidden secret. That's why the books mean so much. That's why there's so many books about the White House, quite frankly, is because they do so much to hide what's going on in there. But that said, like, watching, when Obama was having issues, that he was going to have to make a really hard decision, and it was, you could tell these were heartbreaking decisions. I've talked to you guys about this, like, the kind of decisions you're forced to make as president. If you're a serious, empathetic, decent human being, it's awful. There is a fork in the road, and both ways are terrible. And the slightly less worse way means fewer people die, but there's no situation where there's a good outcome, and you have to call it. And that's where the whole character argument really does matter. So, yes, you can call in next week, absolutely. Yeah, Pete Souza, yeah, he's amazing. He was Reagan's photographer as well. And they started posing for a lot more pictures. Obama, interestingly enough, said, just take, fire away, get everything you got. Whereas they show this whole segment where, Reagan was posing for pictures. Now, he's old school Hollywood, so it's not surprising that, he would come up with these ideas like based on image. And Nancy was very protective. But there were some pictures that Pete Souza took. I got to be honest. I started my comedy career making jokes about Ronald Reagan. I was not a fan of the man, and I didn't vote for him. But on a humanity level, he clearly had more on the ball than Trump will ever hope to have. And the pictures of Nancy Reagan and his description of their relationship, but the pictures of Nancy Reagan with her hand on the coffin are incredibly sad. That is a woman losing her husband. Whatever my feelings about him, and I certainly think Iran-Contra was a much bigger crime than people even know it to be. It's a stain on the presidency that Reagan was an active participant in. That said, pictures of Nancy Reagan with her hand on, yeah, I cried too. And there was so many moments in that, So, and the kid touching Obama's hair, and the soldier he had met with before he went to war and who came back, who'd been wounded by an IED and was having to learn to walk again, and the history that the Obamas have with that family. It was just brutal. We were a wreck. Both of us were just crying the whole time. Ugh. But I highly recommend watching it. It's very beautiful. And like I said, as sad as it is because of who Trump is, it's also very hopeful that you look to this, the Sandy Hook stuff when he was dealing with Sandy Hook. Oh, God. But recognizing how important it is, So I recommend you watch it. It was one of those things I was like, oh, I'll watch it eventually. But man, yeah, it was called The Way I See It. Yeah, it was, oh God, it was just rough. Yeah, the pictures of Obama hugging his kids after the Sandy Hook thing happened. Yeah. HalSparks and Nancy had to care for him through Alzheimer's. Yeah. To watch him go. And, I watched the 92 Republican convention where Bush was running against Clinton with Patty Davis. We watched it together. Long story that involves Marianne Williamson. That's yeah. But so Reagan lost a year of his life giving that speech because the Alzheimer's was getting so bad that he was afraid that if he got off track, he would never come back. And his doctors had told him it was very bad for him to do it. But he did it for Bush, try and get him reelected. And he gave a speech for him. But he kept going, all right, all right. He kept saying that because he was afraid that if he got off, he would literally wander off the stage. He didn't know where his mind would go. He was so locked in. But it took a year off his life doing that speech alone. And again, it was, party differences notwithstanding, as a human being going through that, and as Trump got sick, I was like, get this dude medical care. And even still, they're totally jacking him up on stuff. His afternoons, he's a mess. he is a useless president right now because they are jacking him up for his rallies, and then he goes and crashes. We saw all the slurring he was doing because he had to do 2 in a row. I mean, it's bad. So as a human, you're like, this is just, his family needs to intervene, but it's never going to happen. I love Marianne Williamson. I wish Biden would include her somehow. She's amazing. Poppy Rose, do you know I worked with Marianne? That I ran her lectures and did sound for her, and I'm who, you know, convinced her to get Marianne.com as her website in 1993. You know that? You know, I was around for I was the dude around when Emma was raised. All that stuff. Do you know any of that? Yeah. It's a long story. It's yeah. It's not. Yeah. So I worked with her very closely, and here's what I would say: the teachings of Marianne Williamson have value, and there's a spiritual soundness that is valuable for a lot of people. I think she makes her arguments come from a genuine place for the most part. That said, I don't feel like she needs to be anywhere near the halls of power. That's how I would put it. I mean, I'm thanked in the book Illuminata, the book that she wrote about prayer. I was at all the lectures that, and she is sincere, but it's how she activates that sincerity that's sometimes at issue. All the lectures that made up the book, A Return to Love, which is a valuable book, I recommend it. I was there when she spoke them. They basically are transcriptions of those lectures. Yeah, Marianne is a good spiritual guide. Not, it does not translate well to the political sphere. If that makes sense. Okay. I mean, it's a Gordian knot of history that goes into that and stuff. And her daughter's wonderful, and so many of the people that work with her are extraordinary. So, you know, and the issues that she cares about are valid and worthwhile. We just vary on, on whether or not it would make things worse. So there you go. Gordian knots versus Mobius strips. Discuss. Well, a Gordian knot arguably was cut, you know, and therefore it was the Kobayashi Maru argument originally. That's where the Gordian knot, you know, where the Kobayashi Maru, yeah, comes from, is the Gordian knot concept. But a Mobius strip is a permanence, a mathematical permanence. You don't split it. You can't divide it. If it exists, it exists. Is that pretty much the breakdown? Yeah. The no-win scenario does not exist. No, they're just lesser wins. Okay, back to what we're talking about.
Prosecutors, D.C. lawyers, diplomats, and hustlers.
By the way, I can't wait for Trump to unveil John Jr. At the Dallas. Let's see if we can find. I'll see if I can bring that up. Does anybody know what time the Dallas thing is? His rally or whatever it's god awful thing he's going to do? Yeah. There we go. Campaign. Trump delivers campaign remarks in where? Oh, the chat's disabled. 2 hours. Okay. Oh, God. We're going to have to come back. I'm going to have to leave and come back for that one. Yeah, what do you think? I mean, honestly, if he's going to show up, this is the one. And is it the dude? Is it the Hugh thinks, whoops. Oh, sorry. I set that up to go on a key stroke, that if I write Q, that's what happens. If I type a Q. My bad. John Jr. Is this man. Let's see. The dude who they think, where is he? Where's the weird guy? At Trump rallies. Where is he? We showed a picture of him. Oh, there he is. This guy. Here he is. So, is it this guy? Are we to suspect that this is the dude who's going to show up? That's supposed to be John Jr. John J. now. I mean, his nose has gotten longer, and it's a different shape entirely, and his head's gotten wider. That happens when you get older. That's possible. That's him. Yeah, I mean, I see it. What? I mean, arguably, this is probably closer. You know, the aged fake John F. Kennedy Jr. photograph. This one right here. That's a little more believable than this one. I'm just saying. Would he look like this, or would he look like this now? Just on a style level. Would you? I mean, you're a Kennedy. You know, are you really going to go for the shaggy baseball cap look? Are those even the glasses he would pick? I mean, not even to start the argument of tie versus lanyard. And by the way, this is the picture they use to show them together all the time. Trump looks very happy to be taking this picture with him. He doesn't look happy to be there. He looks really happy to be there now, of course, because Trump bought him a new hat, obviously. But in this one, he's like, okay. This looks like one of those, okay, pictures. Yeah, so this is who's going to show up. He's going to land. Is this a mask? Are we to believe it's like the Sanjay character in Along Came a Spider? Yeah. Holy God.
And at the center of it all, the president.
Oh boy. Look at that sexy man.
Old
friend. Who doesn't look at all like the Penguin.
And from New York.
I got some bad pictures of myself floating around out there. I mean, you know, we all go through periods where we're not our best. And when you're in the public eye, people just fire away and they post them. And gotta be rough. I don't know what's going on with Trump's head right there. I don't know why anybody thinks that's okay. You know what I mean?
We're beginning to face the problem of crimes committed by powerful people in business and powerful people in government.
Rudy Giuliani.
He's like, wait a minute, maybe there's money in this.
Made his.
I mean, literally, is Rudy Giuliani the embodiment of either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain?
Name as a hard-charging prosecutor.
Was that a Kogi he had in his hand? Is that more clues?
I mean, he went after Wall Street corruption. He went after leaders of the mafia. And it seemed like he was everywhere.
He helped lead America through one of its most difficult moments.
He's the man. I don't see. You see Trump anywhere in there? I heard he rushed down there and he, you know, where he helped dig people out and then he watched people dancing.
Mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani.
After 9/11, Giuliani was one of the most beloved men on the planet.
The responsibility of leadership.
He wagered it all in the 2008 presidential race and he lost. And I think something changed then.
Obviously, I thought I was that person.
Really? You're going to say that right in front of McCain? When you're introducing him? When you're coming out?
Voters made a different choice.
America moved
He seems so happy for his friend.
on from Giuliani, so he went into business overseas.
Rudy began realizing how much money he could make.
He's receiving legal and consulting fees from all over the world, including the government of Qatar, from Colombia. He has clients in Bahrain, in Turkey, and a number of other countries.
The more these foreign sources
Doing what, though? That's the other thing. What advice do you want from Rudy Giuliani? What's he going to tell you? Buy these kind of fire trucks? They're really sweet?
need the help of the U.S. government, the more they're willing to pay.
He's a lobbyist. That's what this is. Can we just cut the crap? Security. He's a lobbyist.
He's earning enormous fees from
as a lobbyist.
Iranian dissident political group.
We're going to be in Tehran much sooner than all those cynics.
Sooner?
Believe.
Rudy says he isn't actually doing lobbying. He's doing legal work for clients. And sometimes when we ask him what he's doing, he'll say,
"We're ready. Get out of our way."
Can't discuss that. It's a lawyer-client relationship.
One of his clients is now the President of the United States.
Don't remind me.
I think that when he saw Trump become president, he said, this is a guy who I can work with, and this is a guy who can help me make money.
Uh-huh.
Long before he represented the president, Giuliani found work in Ukraine.
I have to say, like, all this talk about Ukraine and stuff, I've never really been interested in going to Eastern Europe that much. It's not that there's anything wrong with it, but like on your travel card, there's only so much time. And now that we're getting to the point where, once we get through this and travel opens up again and the world starts to normalize again and travel becomes a little more normal, like, I've never wanted to go to Italy so bad in my life. But you know what I mean? Because they kept talking about how Italy was doing so poorly, and I just, like, your heart goes out to the people of Italy, and they're like, I've never really wanted to go, but now I want to go. The same thing is kind of true about, like, Ukraine and all these places, I feel like I would walk there like I do in London or something. We're like, okay, that's it. All right, it's nice buildings. Okay, what's going on? But I've been curious about these places now. I used to want to be interested slightly in going to Russia. I have no interest now. I have too big a mouth and it's just not safe. But like Ukraine, Hungary, some of those places, just out of curiosity. Yeah. My dad has a place in Italy. Also want to go after this. Well, there you go. We'll meet up. We'll have espresso. Can't stop lying. What a like Batman and Alfred. It'd be great.
We'll
just have to disagree about who's Batman and who's Alfred. We'll swap.
Businessmen and politicians.
Unlike the governor or the president, you're the one who's held accountable.
There are a number of clients in the former Soviet Union that are interested in his services. This goes back to 2006, 2007 era. That's when he forms his first
dozing off
relationships in Ukraine.
But in 2014, Ukraine entered a new era. A popular uprising forced a strongman from power and exposed corruption throughout the ruling class.
The Ukrainian people stood up for dignity, for rule of law, and against kleptocracy, against authoritative regime.
And at that point, Russia, with the help of Rudy Giuliani and Paul Manafort, started pushing Trump and his ilk to try and shift the base of the Republican Party against Ukraine.
In the chaos, Ukraine's more powerful neighbor saw an opportunity. Russia annexed Ukrainian territory and orchestrated a rebellion in the east of the country. It was the beginning of a grueling conflict that continues to this day.
This fight for rule of law in Ukraine costs lives. However, millions of Ukrainians show that we are not giving up.
The Obama administration stood behind the new Ukraine. It provided military aid and support for civil society. Vice President Joe Biden was the face of U.S. policy. He made at least 6 visits to the country in 7 years, including a final one just days before
they welcome you to Ukraine with a pastry. You got to eat the pastry.
Trump took office.
It's imperative that you continue to strengthen all of your anti-corruption institutions to root out those who would return Ukraine to rule by cronyism and kleptocracy.
It was a delicate time for Ukraine's wealthiest men, known as oligarchs, and they looked for ways to maintain their status.
It's usually the strategy of oligarchs to get access to Western politicians through chain of lobbyists, PR firms, lawyers. And obviously Rudy Giuliani, who is close to President Trump, seems...
I'm curious how they're going to pronounce Burisma. I'm just, I want to see if it lines up with what Trump has been told.
The Burmese executives, so this Burmese, they say, pronounce it Burmese.
Be a good guy to use in order to pass a message to the senior leadership of the United States.
Giuliani was hired by the city of Kharkiv in 2017, appearing with its controversial mayor on trial at the time for kidnapping.
Well, okay, sure.
The charges were later dropped.
The mayor seems to be loved by everyone.
Giuliani mixed
loved by everyone?
Business with charity. In 2018,
yeah, these guys, yeah. I would totally get in a van with these guys.
he linked up with a Ukrainian rabbi to raise money for Anatevka, a village for Jewish war refugees.
Почетным мэром этого села стал Giuliani, поэтому тут уже какая-то была не только благотворительная связь, мне кажется, это были еще какие-то другие связи.
There were two other fundraisers on the project.
What do you know?
Igor Fruman and Lev Parnas.
Hi, Moishe. Moishe, how are you, baby? How you doing? Here with Rudy, congratulations on 120.
I love that picture. I can't wait to come back.
The three men were already working on a much larger project in Ukraine, and it involved the President of the United States.
Yeah, these guys. Remember all this stuff? Like, this is from February they put this out, but this was all last year.
When Igor...
I'm going to be on Stuttering John's at 12:30. Yeah.
Fruman was arrested with his business partner in October.
Yeah, so I forgot to announce that. That's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, I'm going to be on Stuttering John's podcast on his YouTube channel at 12:30. And then I'll come back and do the John Jay reveal.
Few Americans had ever heard his name. But in the Black Sea port of Odessa, he had a reputation.
Он как раз появился в Одессе в 90-е годы. Поэтому для многих в Одессе до сих пор люди его помнят именно по этой части его деятельности, по шумным вечеринкам, по машинам Майбах и по прочему. Да? Он как бы стал центром светской жизни.
Fruman built a boutique hotel in Odessa. Later, he opened a popular nightclub. One development.
Nice. Nice. I mean...
on public land set off clashes.
Really? Mafia rave? You're shitting me, right?
With local activists.
Якщо в них є вплив на офіційні органи влади, якщо в них є достатньо грошей, то тоді вони це роблять. Це звичайна бандитська поведінка. Це тут немає нічого такого надзвичайного.
Для меня Игорь Фруман – это история не про настоящего бизнесмена. Это не тот человек, который делает бизнес по правилам всю свою жизнь. Это скорее про какой-то непрозрачный, темный и мошеннический, возможно, бизнес. Использует свои связи, и это все об этом.
Fruman moved to South Florida in the late 2000s. Eventually, he connected with Lev Parnas, a fellow businessman with roots in Ukraine.
Lev Parnas is a guy who was chasing the American dream. People who have encountered him in the last few years have called him a hustler.
That's good. That's a nice name. Do you remember a BBC documentary series called Connections? I think it was James Burke, still holds up, brilliant in its own right. Absolutely. Connections 2 is one of my favorite shows of all times. I don't know what the alien shadow was. I think that's just painted on a wall.
And it seemed to always be looking for an angle, looking for the next deal.
Parnas and Fruman set their sights on Republican Party insiders.
They're giving money to political candidates. At some point in the summer of 2018, they secure a meeting with Rudy Giuliani, and that's the start, as far as we can tell, of the relationship with Giuliani. And it gets very close very quickly.
With their Ukrainian contacts, the two men would soon be useful to Giuliani. But in the meantime, they had their own interests. They were hoping to break into Ukraine's natural gas industry.
Их ощущение было, скорее всего, продиктовано тем, что собой газовый рынок представлял там, когда они еще жили в Украине, действительно был под контролем там, олигархов и так далее, и был коррумпирован.
The men connected with a gas tycoon in exile, one of Ukraine's wealthiest and most powerful men. His legal team hired Parnas, paying him hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And he refers to himself
to do what?
To one associate of his in Florida as the world's highest paid translator. So there are these extraordinary alliances and connections. We don't understand them fully yet, but we can see common goals.
One goal was the removal of the U.S. ambassador in Ukraine.
The old oligarch system is still clinging to life, and corruption is its life support.
Marie Yovanovitch was a champion of the anti-corruption movement, and that made her a target. Parnas and Fruman sought out access to her boss.
They give $325,000 to America First, which is the main pro-Trump super PAC. And
they buy access.
Two of them are given access to a small roundtable dinner with the President of the United States at the Trump Hotel in April of 2018.
All right, everybody. The President.
Fruman was recording throughout the meal and caught this exchange between Parnas and the president.
This is the real story of Rudy Giuliani's mission for Trump in Ukraine. It's a Washington Post
ambassador. She's still left over from the Clinton administration.
Where the ambassador were Ukraine?
Yeah, and she's basically walking around telling everybody, wait, he's going to get impeached.
The president responds pretty much instantly and quite aggressively to the idea that he's got an ambassador in Ukraine who's not on his side.
Get rid of her.
Correct.
Okay, get her out tomorrow. I don't care. Get her out tomorrow. Take her out. Okay?
Excellent.
Do it.
By the way, those of you that watch Pete Souza's The Way I See It documentary, you'll notice that these kind of meetings, these roundtable dinners, when Obama did them, Pete Souza would be present. He was in the Situation Room when they made decisions, in the Oval Office even, when they made decisions and had their regular security meetings and all this stuff. This was all hidden recordings. Lev Parnas recorded this.
It would be another year before Yovanovitch was ousted, but the seed had been planted.
Jeez.
I tell you, folks, we're all fighting battles.
Even as a candidate, Trump saw Ukraine as a problem.
As far as the Ukraine is concerned, it's a mess, and that's under the Obama's administration. Don't blame Donald Trump for that.
People seem to have been telling President Trump or President-elect Trump that Ukraine is this bad place. It makes perfect sense in his mind that this country, which has a stake against Russia, could have been actually working against him.
He never accepted the findings of U.S. intelligence agencies that Russia had been working to get him elected.
President Putin, he just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
He believed that
that whole walk back. Remember that whole thing?
Special counsel Robert Mueller was trying to take him down.
All we hear about is this phony Russia witch hunt. That's all we hear about.
So clearly this was a ripe informational landscape to be manipulated.
According to Vladimir Putin, there had been a conspiracy in 2016, but it was between Hillary Clinton and Ukraine.
В ходе предвыборной кампании в Соединенных Штатах действующая украинская власть заняла одностороннюю позицию в поддержку одного из кандидатов. И больше того, олигархи некоторые с одобрения наверняка политического просто финансировали этого кандидата.
U.S. officials feared.
So Putin saying that Ukraine funded Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Putin was telling Trump the same thing in private, as they later told the Washington Post. And they feared Trump was listening.
The Democrats colluded on the Ukraine, so they colluded.
I mean, as Putin, you must be really disappointed. Look, all you got to do is go out and say these 5 things, and just we'll basically hand you the levers of power. And then what does he end up? He just derps his way through this stuff.
The Democrats colluded on the Ukraine, so they colluded. And then when you get down to it, why isn't the FBI looking at the DNC server?
On the fringes of the internet, Russian trolls and Trump supporters were amplifying the misinformation, and conservative media ran with it.
Why didn't your news organizations extensively report on Ukrainian collusion?
The president wanted an investigation. In 2018,
Oh, they got one, by the way. Nothing
Trump
happened.
hired an old friend as his personal lawyer. He was an old investigator with history in Ukraine.
I was seeking, in the best tradition of being a lawyer, a defense lawyer,
Lawyer.
to vindicate my client.
With the help of his associates, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman,
Ladies, bachelor number 1, bachelor number 2, and bachelor number 3. That's going to be a difficult choice.
Giuliani was on the case.
The graphics department is rock solid in this. Even
By
though they're
late 2018,
occasionally reusing the same drone footage.
Parnas and Fruman were in Kyiv, holding court at the Hilton International Hotel.
Парнас и Фруман в Украине, они продавали свои связи. И при этом делали это достаточно успешно. То есть это фактически такие предоставление лоббистских услуг, но без чека.
It was a kind of lobbying service, except without receipts.
And extravagantly at cigar bars and nightclubs, met with Ukrainian officials, and reported directly to Giuliani.
Rudy Giuliani, Lev Parnas, and Igor Fruman were...
That room has to just smell spectacular. Honest to God. Is there a single working nostril in that room? Yeah, literally this is a picture of a smoke-filled room. Like, this is the most, aside from the fact that it's tiny, for no particular reason, and looks like they're trying to decide on a wedding ring, and they're all arguing about it, that they're going to buy an antique something. There's lighters, cigar cutters, everybody's on their phone. This dude's looking at Rudy like, what the hell?
Representing the personal political interests of a U.S. president, but also representing at various times unknown financial interests of their own.
Они были как фиксерами для Giuliani. То есть они
People were
выполняли
Giuliani's
работу
fixers. And
фиксеров.
of course it's important because they were successful.
Ну и, конечно, это важно, потому что некоторых успехов они добились. Они смогли организовать ему ряд встреч, действительно, с людьми.
They connected Giuliani with Ukraine's top prosecutor, Yuri Lutsenko. Giuliani met with him in Poland and again in New York. To officials in Kyiv, it was highly irregular.
Giuliani never asked for a meeting with any foreign policy officials here in Ukraine, neither with me nor with someone else, which is, I believe, remarkable, because he tried to contact many people here in Ukraine.
If I were to, to speak with Giuliani, for example, before these meetings happened with Lutsenko, I was told, pick the right people. Lutsenko is not the right person to have communication with. He has own agenda.
U.S. officials were...
Yeah, no, that's exactly why he's the person they want to talk to. And this is the documentary that he was shooting over there, by the way. That's what we're seeing a still from. And by the way, really solid production there, fellas. Glass, and you can see the reflected lights in the shot.
So wary of Lutsenko.
I think Mr. Lutsenko, in my estimation, and I said this to Mayor Giuliani when I met with him,
is a frigging crook.
Was interested in preserving his own position. He wanted to avoid being fired by a new government in order to prevent prosecution of himself.
Here's why Kurt is wrong. With all due respect, he's a great diplomat. He doesn't know anything about investigating. Doesn't know anything about crime.
Yeah, tell us all about it, Columbo.
Giuliani connected Lutsenko with John Solomon, a sympathetic
Yeah, these again, two guys totally get into a van.
Journalist, and a series of explosive stories followed. Ukrainian officials had apparently worked against Trump in 2016. Ambassador Yovanovitch was part of the conspiracy. None of it was true, as Lutsenko would later admit, but the claims took on a life of their own.
Yeah, kind of like the Hunter Biden story in the New York Post. That's the whole purpose.
Ambassador there was working for Hillary Clinton, working for the Democrats and for George Soros.
Mr. President, the Ukraine is offering this evidence to the United States.
And the president was listening.
It sounds like big stuff. It sounds like very interesting with Ukraine.
In April
Oh my God, this is dull.
of
Anyway,
2019, Trump took action. Yovanovitch got the call from a colleague in the middle of the night.
we remember all that. We went through all this, like, kind of on the radio show as all this went down.
Said I needed to get on the come home immediately, get on the next plane to the U.S. And I asked her why, and she said she wasn't sure, but there were concerns about my security.
These concerns took on new weight after Lev Parnas turned over his text messages to Congress. They suggest the ambassador was under surveillance at the time by an American named Robert Hyde, who appeared to be updating Parnas on her movements. Hyde and
Yeah, whatever happened to that dude?
Parnas have said it was a joke, but Ukrainian police are investigating.
With the sidelining of Yovanovitch, the stage was set for the establishment of an irregular channel in which Giuliani and later others could advance the president's personal and political interests.
By then, the president's interests were changing. He was no longer worried about the special counsel inquiry, which had hung over the White House for nearly 2 years.
Yeah, so the important part of this whole thing, let's see if we get to, you guys can watch this on your own. Here.
To demand a foreign government investigate.
Rally today, it's just not in Dallas, which makes the big Dallas JFK Jr. reveal slightly less likely. Well, it's supposed to be, I mean, I'll do it after, let's see, when is it? Here you go. Get over here. I have so many pages open. It's Michigan. Yeah, so that's 2 o'clock my time, so probably right after the Stuttering John thing. So tell you what, I'm going to finish up right now, guys. You guys can feel free to watch this. We all know the story of Vindman, his most recent little, like these mini docs they're putting out as, you know, Twitter movies, like, are worth watching on their feed as well. But we'll jump in there after I go on Stuttering John show. So if you go to Stuttering, let's see, does he have Crazy Stuttering John? We have to find out what his, I mean, it's on his web. There he is. His YouTube page, and his podcast, which is in an audio format, whatever. Let's see, YouTube, whatever. To open the YouTube page. But anyways, I'll be on there. Just if you search Stuttering John on YouTube, you'll be able to find it. But I'll sign off right now so I can get ready for that, prep for that, and then of course I'll come back on to do the other rally later. Because why not? Why not work myself into an early grave? Since I've got to also shoot sketches today. Did you ever talk to John about the time he talked to Trump? Which John are we? Oh, Stuttering John? No. I think he brought it up. Yeah, no days off. Yeah, that's right. Every day. So I will see you guys later on, and I've got, I'm going to be setting up for sketches that I got to do. But I will see you on Stuttering John's at 12:30, and then in about a half hour, 45 minutes, and then I'll see you guys on, for the rally after that at 2. Should be a good time. All right, I'll let you guys go. Have a great afternoon. I'll see you soon. Bye, everybody. Don't forget, it's pronounced
Burmisia.
Right, not, don't get confused. This is the Burmisia dance remix.
Burmisia.
Yeah.
Burmisia. The Burmisia executives. So this Burmisia, they say, pronounce it Burmisia.
I don't read, obviously.
They don't like to guess. You can climb right over their face
company that his son worked for. That's Pyramids. But to me, Corona means Italy. Pyramisia. 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 We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges.